are back from Silver Creek Studios for another episode of Get a Load of This. I'm Jarod.
I am Ryan.
And we are finally done with October.
Yeah.
It's about damn time.
That seemed like that fucking month took forever.
I really feel like it took a toll on Ryan.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of October, but you know what? Close second on the shit list for months is for me.
Might be worse.
November. Is November. I do like Thanksgiving, but yeah, we talked about this a little bit. You got to go a long way in November before you get. Basically, November and Christmas are not one and the same, but they're
right.
There's a month between them, right?
Yeah.
And so the first 3 weeks of November are pretty much no man's land. You know,
and Thanksgiving's great. You get a big meal out of it, but there's no like really gifts. You don't have that whole.
It's the gift of your family's love,
it
Jarod.
Is. I know. We're all thankful for what we get.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't have the same like decorations and stuff as you get with Christmas. It's just not the same. And it took so long after Halloween to get there.
Well, and as soon as you get the Thanksgiving, if you decorate for Thanksgiving, which I know people that do, if you do, as soon as you get that shit up, you got to take it down and put up a Santa Claus or snowman or some shit. You know,
my wife is very good about, depending on how you look at it. The day after Thanksgiving, she puts up a Christmas tree and all the decorations.
Right on.
She's
good for
right
her.
on it. Yeah. But it's like a thing. It's almost a stressful thing. Like as soon as you put away the dishes for Thanksgiving, you're like, here we go.
Well, she made it very clear that you offer no assistance with the tree erection or decoration.
Definitely. She gets no erections for me.
But
no.
I don't know if we should be laughing about that. That's kind of a sad, it's kind of a sad tale.
Yeah, it is what it is. No, I think that I've never been real big into that, but it's one of those, just like she doesn't want anybody in the kitchen when she's doing dishes or something because we just get in the way. And we don't do it the way she wants.
Right.
Just get out. Just go.
That's I'm that way when it comes to the tree.
That's that way with the tree. Just stop.
Now we're talking about Christmas. How'd this happen? This isn't the way this is supposed to go.
Come on.
But when it comes to, I'm like, hey, I put the lights on. Get the fuck out of my way. Everybody out. And I need one kid to just because I don't want to walk that much. So I just like, you stand over there. I'm gonna hand this shit to you. I'll come around. I'll grab it. And then I'll hand it to you. You don't even move.
Right.
You just stay in the same spot. And so I'm particular about that. But then once I'm done with the lights, it's not my bag. Then the kids and the wife take over and they do pretty much everything else until it gets to garland time or high shit because everybody's short. But
well, fuck all that holiday stuff.
Christmas.
So
we're gonna talk about Christmas a month and whatever
it's
from
coming.
now.
And we'll get into the holiday spirit and all that. With November, one of the things I do want to bring up, we don't have to go down this road too far, but my daughter recently turned 16. My youngest child
old bastard
is 16. Yes, I'm old.
You're younger than me.
But I know. You're old.
I am old.
But it's definitely like, I don't know. It sucks, right?
Yeah.
Your youngest kid is capable of transporting themselves.
Right. Completely independent.
They are liable for damages.
Right.
Yeah, right. I mean,
they're only a
couple years away from being on their own, right? Yeah, they can get you in some trouble.
It is scary, whenever our oldest boys are the same age, and whenever they turn 16, it's like it doesn't hit you, but then it's like real quick. They're adults and they're 18 and it's like well, fuck, that was quick,
right?
16 is like, oh, okay, look at my baby, they can drive. Then it's like, holy shit, they're an adult. Yeah, and before you blink.
And when your youngest is 16 and now you know how quick that 18 comes, you're just like, holy shit,
it's all over, brother.
I know it. I'm telling you.
You and the old lady are dating again before you know it, and
Plus, I know how rebellious and obstinate she can be. And so I'm really kind of frightened now that she's going to be driving around and she can kind of leave the house whenever she wants.
Well, we as we've established, old Chuck, who it's too late for him to call into the show, but he's ecstatic because she's his transportation now.
She has offered to bring him to school,
and I was like, "You sure she wants to do that? Because it's kind of out of the way." And it's like 2 miles basically, a mile there, a mile back to get. And he's like, "Oh no, she's down with it. She's cool." And I'm like, "All right, man, fantastic, because that means my fat ass don't have to take you, and my wife doesn't have to take you. It's all good." So he's happy about it.
Yeah,
and he's the young They're the same grade, but
Right.
he's like
he's
July.
got a ways to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
She's a little old for her grade,
Yeah.
and he's probably on the young side of his grade.
They're on the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop him from shopping for cars.
Oh,
And,
sure.
You know, I'm like, dude, there's no reason for us to mess with this now.
I have been harassed on a regular basis by my daughter.
As you should be.
Yeah, I know.
Got to get her something cute.
Uh-huh.
You know, probably a convertible.
Yeah.
What's the insurance on that? There's a point. There's a topic we could talk about. Insurance rates for girls. I want you to let me know whenever you get that back from.
Well, I can tell you, and so you've gone through this with your oldest, your son. When I called about my son when he was turning 16 to get insurance, I made some comment about, you know, oh, I should have had a girl, right? You know, because I guess in my mind, and the stereotype is that 16-year-old boys are so expensive to insure.
Right.
And the agent was like, no, it's about the same, if not worse for girls. She
Really?
said, yeah, it's not any worse for boys, and it might be worse for girls. I was like, really? And she said, yeah, that's just a stereotype. That's not true. It's expensive for both of them.
Yeah.
So,
just under 18, under 21 probably is just expensive.
Right.
Yeah. Because they're all idiots.
Yep.
But, you know, this is just a stream of consciousness here. You know, we both commute for a reasonable distance, and this morning I'm driving in the fast lane, and I'm going along at a pretty good clip. There's not a lot of traffic. Everything's going along great. Listening to the radio, got some tunes, and I look in my rearview mirror, and there is someone. It was a Lexus. No, I'm sorry. It was an Infiniti, but an older one.
Mm-hmm.
Nice car though. Still nice Infiniti SUV. Right on my ass, and I look. Oh shit! What you know? Because I'm just cruising along. I wasn't paying enough attention, and they were. I mean, like Jesus Christ! And I'm doing like 80. You know, 75, 80 miles an hour, and I'm like, what the fuck? You know? So I turn blinker on. I move over one lane, and this car pulls up and is, you know, going to go past me. And I look over and I give the old, you know, heads up, you know, just a nod. And there's a young lady who mouths something to me. I don't know what she said. Cocksucking motherfucker. I mean, who knows what she said? I didn't look. I mean, she looked angry, but I don't know what she said. But what I noticed is that she had her cell phone in her right hand. And before she even got past me and got done with her vitriol towards me, she was back looking at her fucking phone. So she's doing 80 miles an hour on my bumper, on her phone, mad at me. And I'll just throw this out there. If she hadn't been so angry and had this you know, towards me, she's probably a very attractive woman. She looked like she was a cute you know, late 20s, early 30s lady. And it's like, yeah, you're really that is not becoming to look that angry. Plus, you're probably gonna fucking die soon because you're doing 80 miles an hour on the fucking highway, looking at your goddamn phone. Stop it. Anyway, so
it's every day, Ryan.
I know it is every day, but when it comes, we're getting back to your point about, or maybe it's my point, whatever, about females and males in the younger set driving. This is controversial. I think that girls are more dangerous because they are more addicted to their phones and being on the. Now, I'm not saying it's universal that no boys are ever on their phone.
Well, I will definitely
happens.
say in my case, my son and my daughter, my son totally is willing to and does put his phone down while he's driving. Doesn't even look at it. Doesn't even listen to it. Doesn't do anything with it until he gets where he's going. And I know my daughter is not going to be that way. She's going to be attached to it.
But see, it's silly. You need to show her every video that's online, all of those warning videos that say, look what happens because you had to respond to this Snapchat. You could be in a coma or dead or dismembered or, you know, or you could be perfectly fine and be in prison because of involuntary manslaughter because you killed somebody else. It's a terrifying thing. And you know, look, I'll be honest. I'm not 100% innocent. I do glance at my phone. I also have a smartwatch that goes off every time I get a message or whatever. So I'll be driving and my watch will buzz and I'll glance at it. It's no different than checking your watch 30 years ago when you were driving. But what I'm talking about is the people that I see on the highway that have well, usually it's one hand, but I've seen two hands on a phone,
right,
reading it with the two hands resting on top of the steering wheel while they're barreling ass down the fucking highway. And I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah, we have.
But it drives me nuts, and I wish there was some recourse that I could that's something I could do. Because if I'm driving on the highway and I see someone driving drunk, like if I see someone just swerving all over the place, just driving recklessly, and clearly there's a problem, either they're having a stroke or they're drunk.
What would you do?
I would call 911 and I would say, "Hey, I'm on this highway. I'm at this intersection.
Right.
There's a car in front of me.
911. There's a guy on his cell phone."
Right. But I think it's not 911. I don't think you should be able to call 911.
But you should be able to notify an officer. Hey, this guy right here.
Yeah. Well, especially if they're driving erratically. Now, if you just see someone that's driving and you glance over and they happen to be on their phone and they haven't done anything wrong, well, that's not a reason. But if you're driving behind someone and they're obstructing traffic,
well, yeah,
and or like most of the time, when I notice it is they're driving extremely slow. Yeah. They're doing exactly the speed limit, and then whenever like, all right, I got to get around this guy,
right,
or gal, and you get next to them and you realize, oh shit, they're on their phone because they're not paying any attention to the road around them.
I find it's not necessarily driving slow. I have seen that, but it'll be swerving a little, not like they're necessarily drunk, but like crossing over the dotted line or onto the edge a little bit, you know. And then you'd get up next to them. Oh, they're on their phone. That explains it. Yeah. Or at an intersection, they don't go when everybody in front of them goes, and then they realize it. Boom, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's super dangerous.
Yeah.
And we almost not take it for granted. You just accept it as like, well, there's on his phone.
Right.
Like if everybody was just hammered drunk all the time, you're like, well, he's drunk.
Well, it's the law in the state that we reside in Illinois, that you can't even talk on your phone. You can't even have the phone in your hand. You have to have a hands-free device. It's against the law.
Which really irritated me at
your hand.
Because I can talk with the phone up to my ear.
Right.
Totally fine and not be distracted, and I can pay attention. And, you know, to the detriment of the conversation, usually people who are talking to me on the phone are like, can hear me paying attention to what I'm doing, driving, you know, and they're like, they get annoyed because I'm not continuing my conversation with them.
Right.
And I can do that. And when they changed that law, it was like, well, God damn it. Now I can't even.
But now you have a hands-free device in your car.
I'm a capable driver. Right. Yeah, well, now I do. Yeah. Now
I think that the law was made.
At the time, it was inconvenient for me.
Well, it was made not for people talking on the phone. It was made that they just don't want to have a phone in your hand.
Sure.
And
I get it.
Give credit to the state of Illinois. I don't give them much ever, but I'll give them credit on that one. That's a good law. That you should not be distracted. You know.
It doesn't work. Everybody does it anyway.
Well,
so what's the point of the law? But
how do you enforce it? I mean, how does a cop?
Yeah, I guess it's just like a seatbelt. You have to notice somebody.
Right.
If you see somebody not wearing their seatbelt, if you see them on their phone.
I don't know. It's aggravating. I've talked about the people eating cereal while they're driving, and people reading books and putting on makeup, and
there needs to be a better way. Maybe it's with eye detection or something where like. Your phone can be on in the car. You're still going to receive text messages and whatever and playing music. But if we see that you're putting this thing up to your face and you're looking at it
while you're driving,
but that's the thing. What if you're the passenger? You
exactly.
Can't tell the difference.
So my phone, I just got a new phone, and
we need to get into that. We talked about your old plan and your old phone.
So I got a Pixel 3.
Ryan is pimped out now.
I'm with a Verizon. Everything's kind of good, whatever. I don't want to get into the phone too much. But what is cool about it's a cool phone. And the advancements from phone to phone nowadays, they aren't as huge. There's nothing like, oh my God, it's so amazing. True. But what this has, and my old phone had it too, but Android Drive mode or whatever it's called. I think it's called Android Drive.
Okay.
It's not called Google Drive. That's a whole different thing altogether. But Android Drive is, you can turn it on my phone that it will sense movement, whether GPS or whatever. It'll also, this is terrifying because it listens all the time and it'll hear the start of an engine.
Wow.
And it hears engine noise. And this morning I got in my truck and put the phone in the holder that I always put it into. And I just started the car, and immediately it comes up. I mean, seconds. It's like drive mode initiating.
Wow.
And it's cool because it gives me basically anything I would ever need while I'm driving, and it's in big, bold, and it's nicely organized and neatly presented. It gives me maps. It gives me audio like Google Music or Amazon or whatever. And it also gives me if I had a recent call, it'll say so and so called. If I get a text message, it'll say play message, and it plays it through. I can play it through my car, but I can also play it through the phone, and I can reply through the phone. It's very, very user friendly.
Yeah.
Interesting thing though, getting to my point, is that I was searching for something to listen to because I was tired of listening to whatever it was. So I can click on the headphones and I can search what source I want to use. If I want to use Google or Amazon or Spotify or whatever. If I want to listen to our podcast, all those things are available to me, right? So when I click on it, I can then scroll through the different things, but after about 10 seconds of me scrolling, it stops and says, pay attention to the road.
Wow, yeah.
It says, drive mode, pay attention to the road, and it basically locks me out for, I want to say like 15 or 20 seconds where I can't look at the phone. I basically have to pay attention to the road. And it just reminds you, and it makes it, I think it's an option, that it makes an audible noise like, ding, hey.
So what if
fucker.
you were the passenger?
Well, you would just turn it off.
Oh.
Yeah, you could just, and I can swipe up and exit drive mode pretty easily if I wanted to. That would be irresponsible.
Right.
But it's possible.
They probably should do that for passengers too. Like, you should be able to sit in the car, not on your phone, and communicate with other people, have a conversation.
God forbid there's some human interaction,
God
right?
forbid you look out the window, see what's going on in the world.
Yeah,
but,
no, it's a weird world we live in, but it's also very scary when you have kids that are driving.
It is.
Getting back to the point, when the first kid was my other neighbor, that when he started driving, he's the oldest one of all the kids that hung around my kids, and his parents very proudly said, "Oh no, whenever he drives, he puts his phone in the glove box." And I was like, "Oh, that's good. That's very responsible." And about 3 months or so, maybe less than that after that, my oldest boy was riding with him, and I said, "So does he still put his phone?" He goes, "Hell no. He's on that thing all the time." I'm like, "You're done riding with him." And then I've asked Chuck, and I was like, "How's your brother drive?" He's like, "Oh well, he does use his phone, and he's always changing the music." And I'm like, you guys, it's not that important. The tunes you're listening to aren't that important.
Yep.
But again, go back to whenever we were driving, we had to go through the giant album of CDs to find the right one while we were driving. And
I guess I don't know if I did that. I probably did. But...
No, certainly we did. Whether it was the tape container that we had, or it was the CD album that the I'm talking about, the big portfolio of CDs that everybody had in their car. I guess it's no different, but the phone is different. It sucks you in.
You are reading fine details, scrolling through. Your focus is not just on one little thing. You can see the color of a CD in a portfolio, know which one it is, and grab it without even looking. You have to read, scroll through text, go down. Your focus is fully on that phone when you're doing that. It's
I almost
not
rear-ended a lady this morning. I think it was a lady. Another car. I almost rear-ended someone this morning.
Yeah.
Because it was sunny, and I had the sun visor, flip-down sun visor, and my lottery ticket that I stick in the visor fell down in my lap. And so I was like, oh, shit.
If you're hearing this, he didn't win the lottery.
So I put, I was trying to put everything back, and my focus was not on the road. I was putting shit in back in the visor. And meanwhile, a car stopped in front of me, and I had to slam on the brakes, and everything fell out of the passenger seat into the floor of the car. And I was like, holy shit. And that was literally a split second. And
we've all had it where, you are paying attention. You are not an irresponsible driver. You are not on your phone. You are doing your job as a driver, as a commuter. But all it takes is that one split second where you look down at the time on the clock or the radio or whatever, or anything, and it just has to happen to coincide with that person in front of you slamming on their brakes.
It goes back to what I said on a previous one. It's like it's always someone else. Yeah. I mean, it may be your fault that you weren't paying attention, but there was a chain of events that occurred, and you weren't the first stupid person. Usually, you weren't the first stupid person.
Everybody,
in the chain of
we
events.
all at any given time, you glance at your speedometer, you glance at the clock radio, you glance at the car next to you in the rear view mirror. I mean, you're always checking different things.
Sure.
All it takes is you to check your rearview mirror at the exact moment that the car in front of you slows down, and guess what? You're fucked.
Yeah.
So it's not because you did something wrong. It's just circumstance.
Right. So the bottom line is, you need to show your daughter every video, every terrifying video out there.
Idea. Just show her some.
Force her. I'd sit her down and say, "You're not leaving. You're not leaving until you watch everything that I have to show you here." And
some,
just drive
Al-Qaeda beheading videos and shit. And like,
by the way, don't go to Afghanistan. But if you do, don't be on your cell phone while you're driving. That's not what we were planning on talking about here, though. Well, I don't even know where were we going with this.
I did have something I wanted to bring up, and I'm not even sure where it's going to go. But recently, my wife and I finished watching the second season of Making a Murderer.
Oh yeah.
So if you want,
I didn't even know
see where that
the second
goes.
one was out. I watched the first one.
It just came out like a week ago.
Well, you guys are dedicated.
Right. Oh, yeah. Hardcore.
How many episodes
It's
is
just 10. 10 1-hour episodes.
10 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good that you and...
we marathoned about half and half. We did like the first 5.
Yeah. That's good.
So I don't know how much you want to get into the actual documentary or the case. I wouldn't mind just discussing in general the court system and justice in general, and how I feel like overall I think innocent until
proven guilty.
No, sorry, but beyond reasonable doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Beyond reasonable doubt is gone in this country. It's bullshit. There's no such thing as beyond reasonable doubt.
You think?
Yes, I fully think that.
Based on Making a Murderer, though.
Based on lots of things. But that's a big part of it. And many other documentaries I've watched about criminal activity.
Right.
And fucking social media in general. I mean, the whole Me Too movement, right? It's not, well, let's see where this goes. Well, let's find out the details.
Well, there's a difference between the court of...
Crucify him.
There's a difference between the court of public opinion versus the actual court.
But unfortunately, I feel like that has crossed over into the jury. The jury is now taking public opinion. They don't really care about that key thing of beyond reasonable doubt. If there's any doubt that this person did this thing, even if there's all this indication that they probably did it, if there's a strong doubt for whatever aspect, you have to let that person off. And they don't anymore. It's like, fuck that. We think he did it. And I think it's bullshit.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with it. It's bullshit if that's the case, and I don't think it's not the case, but I don't think it's the case 100% of the time. If that makes any sense?
Well, sure. Nothing's ever 100%. But yeah.
I think that that's about jury selection, and there's a great movie with what's the guy from Say Anything? John Cusack, that's 100% about jury selection. It might be called Hung Jury or something like that, or
Hung, I think.
Yeah, maybe it's just the jury. It might just be called the jury. Anyway, it's good. But there, I think, in major court cases, there's a lot of effort put into jury selection, and they do just ridiculous amounts of research.
But not to get to the truth.
No,
they pick a jury to get
win their
case.
Side. Yeah,
right.
Sure, to sway it as much as they can. Right. And I'm sure there's cases of jury intimidation, that some that we've heard of, some that have been proven, and some that we'll never hear of. And, but it definitely happened.
Right.
And with the case of Making a Murderer, I think exactly where you're heading is that this pool that they were dipping into, it was tainted. It was tainted from the jump, from the first case before the original documentary series was produced, because his name was so prevalent, and everybody, and it was a small town too,
right?
But everybody knew him, and everybody knew all these factors in that microcosm, that he was already fucked. Now, if you're going to do a retrial, or not a retrial, but if you're going to do an appeal case, the world knows about it. Definitely the U.S. I mean, most people are familiar with Making Murder if they haven't watched all 10 episodes of the first set of the documentary series. And now, obviously more is played out, and there's been some that's been in the press, and we've heard about the, what's his name, Dylan or
Brendan.
Massey. Yeah. So there's things about him that we all know, and that
I think what's interesting about it is, so that your original trial it's a trial by jury. Not everybody, but I mean, I guess you can choose to have a trial by jury as opposed to a single judge or whatever that's going to hear it. But after that, all of these appeal processes are typically one judge that's going to hear your case and decide whether or not it meets whatever criteria to, whatever. And then if whether you win or lose, one side of you is going to appeal again. And then whether you win or lose that, the other side's going to appeal again. And it's going to go up 5 or 6 times. And it takes really until almost the final level of judiciary, decision making before you would actually get a group of people. So you're only ever getting one person.
Right.
And
as we know, everything is tainted nowadays. Everything is, well,
and it's not even about the evidence. I mean, it can be about the evidence, but it's as every much political. They don't want to overturn the decision of one of their.
But let's just take the making a murderer thing.
Yeah. So
there's nothing political about it. The guy's either a scumbag murderer or he's not. There's no R or D behind either one of them that I'm aware of.
Well, right. Not in the sense of that.
Yeah, there's no
it's political in the sense of we don't want to get fucked here, and we want to help out that other guy we know who doesn't want to get fucked.
There's
so
the local politics where the sheriff and the prosecutor and all the people that were involved in the original case don't want to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
Or if they did do something wrong and they framed them or they planted evidence or something like that, they obviously don't want that to be found out because and so certainly that is political. But what I'm saying is that no judge, I guess what I'm getting at is that the concern is that judges are going to be more Republican, more Democrat, or whatever. In this case, it's when you get to the district, when you get to that U.S. Circuit judge, that shouldn't be a factor anymore.
Well, here's where I will dispute that. So, and I don't want to give too much away for anybody that hasn't seen it. Spoiler alert of season 2 of Making a Murderer. At some point, Brendan Dassey, who is the nephew, his case gets to the 7th Circuit Court, federal court in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a panel of 7 judges that are hearing evidence. But it's quick. It's like the prosecution gets 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I think it's 30 minutes. And the defense gets 30 minutes. That's it. And during that 30 minutes, it's a back and forth question and answer. So they don't even get to make their whole case.
So they say something.
They have
the
to
judge asks
respond to a question, and they can interrupt
so
them.
It's like
and
the
whatever.
Supreme Court, basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. It's a federal court, but in a smaller. It's before the Supreme Court. Anyway, so at one of these points, one of these judges, it's a female judge, an older female judge, basically says something to the effect of, the interrogation of this kid made my skin crawl. What these guys did to him, I'm paraphrasing, but she did say makes my skin crawl, was disgusting and completely inappropriate and blah, 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 right? And that, she feels pretty strongly about that.
Sure, yeah.
Meanwhile, this woman next to her basically discounts all of that.
Refutes everything she said.
And says, what you're asking is for us to change the law. You want us to change the law on how policemen are allowed to interrogate a suspect. We're not allowed to change the law, and this panel is not allowed to introduce new law. So by rule, you have to lose. Like all she's doing is trying to show off her knowledge of how the law works. So she doesn't give a shit about right or wrong, whether these guys are pieces of shit. She's trying to brag about what she knows.
Here's my question.
She fucked him
just
for the
first woman that you were talking about. Is that I want to know, has she seen the first 10 episodes? Did she watch this thing on Netflix? If so, is her determination based solely on the evidence presented by the prosecutor or by the defense, or is it somehow swayed by a fucking documentary on Netflix?
I don't know if she saw the documentary. They say they watched the actual interrogation video, which lasted a couple hours or whatever.
Right.
So,
well, if that's the case. I mean, but we saw snippets in the first 10 episodes of the documentary, and
we saw a one-sided.
From what I saw, it was kind of bullshit. If they know that this guy is kind of a simpleton, he's not the brightest bulb, and he's also, you know, diminutive and
Right.
easily intimidated.
What I can't believe,
then it is bullshit, and I agree with the first lady.
Right.
However, where do we draw the line for the blue line? Right. Where do we say, oh, you're not allowed to do that? How do you? That's really tough.
Well, and one of the other judges, this guy basically said that. He said, well, first of all, he made the comment, and I can't believe he said it, but I didn't see anything coercive. I don't think they put those thoughts in his mind or suggested him to say something, and they clearly did. I mean, you can see it on video. He says, I don't know, or he says no to a question that they ask, and they say, now I'm just going to ask you, who shot her in the head? And he goes, he did. That is suggested. Like he
had already been there for several hours.
He never even mentioned that she had been shot in the head. He never even acknowledged that he knew that until they said, who shot her in the head? And then he's like, oh, I didn't. He did.
I guess from the first.
So you're saying Steven shot her in the head?
From the first series, what was about the Brendan?
Yeah.
About the Brendan piece was that kid was interrogated for, like you said, 2 hours.
Yeah, at least.
He thought he was in trouble the entire time because he was missing class.
Right.
It was pretty well documented and well established that this kid didn't grasp the gravity of the situation.
Right.
Whether or not he was involved and whether or not that's irrelevant.
But basically, they told him, we can't help you unless you tell us what we need to know. We can't get you a lesser sentence unless you tell us
unless you give us something to convict you on.
So, I mean, whether he did it or not, he's thinking, well, shit, I better tell them what they want to hear. And he didn't. So many times he didn't give them the information they wanted until they said, well, what happened over here? I don't know. Well, what about in the garage? Oh, the garage. You want to know about the garage? You know, it's like they kept feeding him.
So here's my question.
And then they would say, okay, that's it.
Here's my question for you. So following the first Making a Murderer series, where did you stand? Who did you think was right or wrong? Did you think that what the hell's the guy's name?
Stephen Avery.
Stephen Avery. Did you think that Stephen Avery was guilty and that Brendan Massey were guilty of the crime of murder?
So I will say,
after episode 10,
after only watching the 10 episodes, I thought both of them are completely innocent. They got screwed over by the police.
Okay.
I thought there's definitely potential that they might have done it, but I felt like, no, man, they got railroaded. However, right after that, I started reading more about it. There's lots of online information that shows transcripts and things that weren't in the documentary.
Oh, there were some other documentaries done that counteracted, not documentaries, but like videos online.
Yeah.
That, you know.
And as I did more of that research, I thought, okay, maybe they did it, but they still got framed. The police didn't have enough on them, and they planted evidence and did this and that
just
to make sure they got them. The police may have thought they did it, but they framed them, which I still think, I was going to say this earlier, I think that's wrong, and they should be freed. Even if they're guilty, I believe enough in the system to say, if there's reasonable doubt, you've got to let a guilty person go. Because if you start ignoring that factor, you're going to get innocent people are going to be convicted.
So I'll go on the record.
I will say, okay, go
if
ahead.
I recall, it's been a while since I watched it, and I hadn't really thought much of it until tonight. But if I recall, I thought, I mean, I went through the roller coaster that everybody did, which is why it was so entertaining to watch.
Compelling, yeah.
But at the end of it all, I was like, I'm pretty sure that he killed her, and I'm pretty sure that Brendan was there. Whether or not he realized what was going on or was complicit is still questionable. I don't know that he should be in jail, but this Stephen Avery dude, I think he's, I was pretty certain after 10 episodes that he was rightfully imprisoned.
Yep.
So that's where I stood on it. Then I also did a lot of reading, which somewhat reinforced my stance at that point. So here's my next question for you.
Yep.
How do you've watched 10 episodes without giving too many more spoilers? Because
I really want to spoil it.
Well,
I don't want to discuss it anyway,
but I'll just ask you this. How do you feel now? Do you still feel that they were framed and railroaded?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
After 10 more episodes,
Yeah.
more evidence has come out, all the appeals, you still feel
right.
you still feel the same way.
What you almost have to differentiate the two. So Stephen Avery's case is very different from Brendan Dassey's case. In the first season and the second season.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah. So the thing with Brendan Dassey is there's zero physical evidence or any other kind of evidence that he had any involvement besides his confession. So the whole question is, was his confession coerced by the police? Did they make him say that?
Right.
Because other than that confession, there is no proof of any kind that he was anywhere near there, that he was physically involved in anything that had to do with her murder. Nothing. There's
Really?
No DNA. There's no...
Well, but I thought he admitted to being that he went into the house after he got off the school bus or whatever. And
right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Other than with the story that was eventually pieced together by during his confession, which was all over the place and had details that changed completely.
Right.
The only thing that implicates him is the official final story that the police pieced together from what he said.
All right.
So other than that, there's nothing to say that he was there. So as opposed to Stephen Avery, his blood is in the SUV. Allegedly, his DNA is on the hood latch.
Mm-hmm.
She obviously was there to see Stephen, right? So she was there to take pictures that he, called it in. So there's some evidence to indicate Stephen Avery might have been involved. But there's none of that with Brendan, right? So the only thing is his confession. So if you can show, and that's where in season 2, the entire story around Brendan is they're trying to prove or show through all these appeals processes that the confession was coerced.
So does season 2 focus primarily on Brendan?
It's really about 50-50. There's it's probably more about Stephen, but there's so the other thing is, if you've been paying attention at all, Kathleen Zellner is Stephen Avery's new attorney, and she is this powerhouse, high profile lawyer. She's gotten like 17 convicted murderers freed who were innocent, right, and proven with DNA and whatever that they didn't. And
I'm sure she's totally in this for Stephen Avery. She has no other other skin in the game.
As they show in the documentary, Stephen and at the time his girlfriend tried to get in touch with her to take the case for like 4 or 5 years, and she didn't take it until it came out on Netflix.
Oh,
and then
sure.
It was like, oh, wow, this is compelling. I would love to take your case.
So let's establish one thing.
But either way,
lawyers are scumbags.
But it could just be that she, 1,000 people are trying to get a hold of her all the time, and it wasn't until she heard about it on Netflix that was like, whoa, this is a big deal. I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Reminds me of Ted, too.
She makes a good case for herself in this documentary. She is legit. She covers all her bases.
Yeah.
She does all the shit that his original defense attorneys, who at the time were considered great attorneys, everybody loved those two guys, Jerry Buting and Dean Strang. They were rock star attorneys, even though they lost. And she's like, look at all the shit they didn't do. They didn't follow up on this.
That was part of the criticism in the first series was that these lawyers were they had,
as great as they were, they didn't do their job.
Well, I think they thought they had it wrapped up. They thought that, and
honestly, I think they should have. They showed beyond reasonable doubt, way beyond reasonable doubt, and the jury still was like, "Fuck that, we don't like him."
That's like your opinion, man. So
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch it again. But like I said, I feel like
what's interesting about season 2 is that some of the key evidence for the prosecution that got Stephen Avery convicted.
Mm-hmm.
She directly disputes and disproves some of those key pieces of evidence.
That's good.
So if that was done in the original trial, I'm convinced he would have walked. And she is doing the work now to disprove that stuff. And so it's pretty interesting.
Folks could go out right now without watching 10 more hours of Netflix programming. They could go out right now and just Wikipedia this shit.
Yeah, you can see where it stands
and see exactly where it stands at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll say this. I have not watched the second season, whatever.
Yeah, season, they call it.
I haven't watched it. I have not researched it. I did watch the first 10, and I did a little bit after that. But it is interesting, and I intend to watch it, and I intend to not look at the
right.
to
yeah,
go do
I
some
would suggest
research.
that if you haven't been following in the news and
Right.
looked up where things are right now,
Watch the documentary first.
watch the documentary. They make it compelling.
It was also pretty well established that the first documentary or the first season, and now and I don't know about this season, but the first season was definitely biased.
Oh yeah,
Biased towards Avery. The person producing it was really defending him for the most part.
Yeah,
they were fair, and they pointed out some.
I think so.
Some shit that he did some questionable shit. He's not a good person,
And I do think the first season, if you if you weren't really paying attention, you could argue that it was impartial. You could and that you just happened to come to the conclusion that he was innocent, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't really pay attention and go, "Oh no, they're slanting us towards that." Maybe you could. The second season, they almost, from the beginning, they acknowledged the fact that this documentary and these two ladies who did the documentary, they're in his corner. They're trying, so they're not hiding from it,
right.
But they believe it, right? So they believe he's innocent, and they're trying to show that. So I'm fine with that. Everybody has an opinion that they're not claiming to be impartial, and which is fine.
See, if only other cases in the public venue today, whether it's I don't know, Cosby, which I think we all know
had a 10-year-long documentary following them around.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see how people's tone would change. Right now, today, the public opinion is that Bill Cosby, as much as he was a beloved comedic legend up until 5 years ago, he's public enemy, not public enemy number one, but he's his name is Mud for sure. And nobody wants to say that they think he's a great man, even though we all loved him in the 80s and 90s, or the 70s or 60s, or, all the way back. But if you were to put together 20 hours of documentary film on the entire case, slanted, arguably slanted in one direction or the other, how would people's opinions be then? Take Louis C.K., take Brett Kavanaugh, take any controversial figure that's out there in the world today. Mostly we're talking about all three I've mentioned are accused of sexual offenses, but even you take murder. What was the guy that killed his wife? Lace Stevens.
Peterson. Lacey Peterson.
Lacey Peterson. Yeah, what was his name? Scott Peterson.
Scott Peterson.
I think there's been a lot of Dateline and shit like that on that. But you know what? Maybe that should be the next Netflix deal, is to really just kind of unravel that whole thing. And
I feel like this is, I don't know if it's unique and will never happen again, but the first season, they spent 10 years, literally 10 years, compiling that information.
And it was a case that if you weren't in Wisconsin or whatever,
nobody ever knew about that.
Knew about it.
No one knew about that case outside of Manitowoc County before Netflix.
Right.
They, for whatever reason, happened to latch onto that and decide this is pretty interesting, and followed 10 years. Think about 10 years that these two women kept the documentary going, kept interviewing.
They didn't make a nickel.
No.
What were they doing to how did they fund this thing?
It was probably relatively low budget, for a while, and then it was just years of compiling all this stuff, and then they put it out.
That's dedication. Kudos to those ladies.
But even if you think about it, it's been 3 years since the first
original
season.
one.
Yeah, so this next season, it took a while for them to have any new information to talk about, but to put it all together. And so it's not like they did it in 6 months and just slapped it together. But how interesting would any of these high-profile cases be if you had years and years of documentary information in their face, interviewing them one-on-one,
Well, the OJ one, I guess A&E, or I think it was A&E or AMC, was someone they did a movie.
Couple,
and then there was also a documentary that kind of rehashed the whole OJ thing. I even think that's interesting. And not everybody, but anybody our age is very familiar with all aspects of that case, and we've forgotten a lot of it. But when you watch the movie or you watch any documentary about it, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. But if we were to go back and reanalyze this, with a fair and impartial mind, I wonder if people's minds would change.
Yeah, it does make you think.
I'm pretty certain that OJ killed those two people.
Oh, yeah.
I think the majority of people are.
Very little doubt that he did it.
But there's a lot of people out there that think he's still looking for the real murderer.
Nah,
I mean, I think it's laughable.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of people out there that don't agree with us.
What I would love to see, and I don't know if this will start to happen, but if you had, so in the way that Making Murder was 10 years of, a one-sided documentary, if you had right alongside that released at the same time was
the other
second
side.
documentary that was 10 years of the other side.
But how do you know? How do you know what to follow?
You don't.
I mean everybody's taking a chance. If you, there's
Right.
probably someone out there following some, bullshit court case in bullshit county America, that hoping that it's going to turn into
Right.
the next thing, and it may never.
I'd like to think that case is unique in that, if what they're alleging is true, that the whole county police department is in on it, and
right.
and the sheriffs and the judges and blah blah blah, and they're all hiding evidence and planting evidence and this and that and blah blah blah, and he was wrongly convicted twice and sent to prison. That's so compelling. You're never going to run across that again.
Do you think that the majority of people agree that the one that he was acquitted of, that he was wrongly accused?
I
was
think
legitimately
so.
wrongly accused?
So for one, DNA evidence disproved the conviction against him.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think what we've seen with his murder case now is that a lot of the DNA evidence against him, I think, is wrong. I think
was tainted,
it was tainted, or the analyst is either flat out lying or just manipulating their results, or like they said, with the one bullet out of all the information and evidence in the garage, none of it had any of her DNA on it. None of it.
This is season 2 stuff. So
no, this is season 1.
Oh, okay.
The first season they showed in the garage, which was a fucking mess. There's shit everywhere.
Well, yeah.
They broke up the
They're dirt bags from Wisconsin.
Right. But they broke up the concrete where there were cracks so they could get into the cracks and test for DNA. All this junk and stuff in there. They tested all these. I think they listed, I forget how many hundreds of pieces of evidence that they tested for DNA. Only one thing had her DNA on it, and it was this bullet fragment. And then it turned out that the bullet potentially was contaminated because the woman, the specialist, the DNA expert tester, lab technician, was giving a tour at the time to students or something, and had it exposed to other things, and had her own DNA, like spit or something, got in there. And it was like, okay, so the one piece of evidence out of hundreds,
the damning evidence
that had her DNA on it, might have been contaminated. I wonder if it was.
Yeah.
And as actually, spoiler alert, in season 2, they show that bullet fragment did not have her blood or bone fragments on it when it was allegedly shot through her skull.
Her head, right.
And they shot a bullet through a piece of bone. I think it was like pig bone or whatever, which is the closest to human bone.
Right.
And they did the same thickness and everything, and they shot it through gelatinous material for the brain and all this stuff. And that bullet clearly had bone embedded in the metal, and they tested it for the chemical analysis. And then they did the exact same test on the bullet fragment from the Avery case, and there was no bone on it.
Interesting.
So anyway, I don't know where we.
But is any of that information? I mean, this is season 2 stuff, and it's spoiler stuff or whatever. But any of that information, the testing of that bullet, and then the fact that there's no bone, has that been introduced into court yet?
Well, so that's the thing. So what Kathleen Zellner did was compiled a bunch of stuff, physical evidence like that, circumstantial evidence like implicating other potential assailants, which his defending attorneys, Buting and Strang, were not allowed to do. If you recall, in the first season, in that trial, the judge said, no, you cannot introduce potential other suspects. And they were like, what the fuck? Of course we're going to point it to someone else if that's what the evidence says.
It's our job to defend
this person. And they said,
person.
no, you can't do that. Well, she doesn't have that restriction. She can do whatever she wants and then present it. So she presents
and she does
3 or 4
different
people that have strong cases against them.
Didn't they find bones? And this is season 1 shit, but didn't they find like her bone fragments in like a burn bin or something like that behind his property?
So there were multiple places where bones were found. Again, this is in the first season.
Right.
So
were they her
spoiling
bones?
That. Well, that's another thing. These bones were burned so badly that not only, and as far as I have not seen anywhere on the documentary or online or any other information that says definitively that it's her, that these are her bones, because they're damaged so bad from fire.
Right.
So they can't test for sure that they're even human bones. Some of these bones are being thought to maybe be deer bones.
Really?
So some of them they can't for sure say they're even human, and I'm not sure any of them they can say for sure are hers, but for whatever reason they seem to feel pretty strongly that they are. So I don't know. Well, let's just assume that they're her. But yes, there were bones found at his house in a burn pit between the garage and his home. There were bones found in a burn barrel behind Brendan's house.
Mm-hmm.
There were 4 barrels. One of them had bones in it, I believe. And then there's a quarry nearby, right adjacent to the Avery salvage yard is this big rock quarry with a burn pit there. And they found bones in that burn pit. And then they found bones somewhere else in a further corner of the quarry. So there's like 4 different places where there's bones found.
And none of them
which,
can be...
well, they're only saying for sure the ones, of course, at Stephen's property are Teresa, right? Which I guess they're not necessarily denying that these other bones are hers, because supposedly they can tell that they're all from the same corpse or whatever, whether it's her or something else. But then that was part of the defense. They're saying, well, if there's bones somewhere else, in their mind, and they even brought in an expert to say those bones were not moved from Stephen's to that place. They were moved from that place to Stephen's house. And there's evidence to indicate that.
Interesting.
Which would mean she was killed somewhere else, mutilated and burned somewhere else, and brought to his house as evidence, which, who would do that? Well, the police had 36 million reasons to do that.
Right.
But
well, I tell you
they
what,
do get into it in the second season.
It's interesting, and I'm going to have to sit down and watch it and then eventually do some additional internet research. I think what's scary as hell about this case and the attention that it gets, and I think, it got a lot of attention with the first season. I presume it will get a lot with the second season, is that it scares me that this is the future of litigation. And I'm not a lawyer, but that's terrifying that court cases of any small amount of controversy are going to be adjudicated on Netflix.
Right.
But that seems to be, I mean, I don't know how much of it plays into the actual decisions of the judges or the juries, but it seems to be that that's where we're heading, is that well, obviously the court of public opinion has its weight, right? It can make or break someone, especially if they're in the public eye. But that's scary stuff, man. It almost feels like every court case, as soon as it is, as soon as allegations are made, that it should be sealed. The press should not be allowed to report on it.
I don't know if I agree with that, because you don't want this whole secret behind the scenes thing where nobody knows what's going on and suddenly somebody's guilty and you're like, wait, what happened?
But on the same on the other side of that,
what happened.
But on the other side of that, as soon as you start opening it up to public opinion, and now you have conjecture, you have the media who maybe has an agenda, and you have just misleading reports or things that are introduced, whether evidentiary or just opinion, things that are introduced that are then taken and distributed amongst Twitter and whatever. Sure. And now they shit moves fast, and now all of a sudden, let's take Michael Brown here in Ferguson. Were his hands up? It was on Twitter that they say he had his hands up and the cop shot him. Well, the court case and the evidence prove that wasn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of people out there, because they pay attention to Twitter and Facebook and whatever, that you'll never be able to convince them the other way, because they're not looking at the actual evidence in the case.
They're looking at social media.
So, and that taints the jury pool, that taints the judges, that taints the entire case. If you, as soon as there's a crime committed, and all right, we're going to press charges upon this individual, sealed, and don't, because not to say that the media is evil, but we can't trust the media to be impartial. I don't think you
can trust the law enforcement to say, I mean, if you sealed off everything and then suddenly somebody's guilty and they said, don't worry, we got this, we tried it, he's guilty, you'd be like, oh, okay.
But then after the fact, if you lay out and it's wide open, the courts say, okay, we have adjudicated this case. This is the evidence that was presented. Here are the notes. Here's the transcript of the courtroom. Here they have a stenographer there, and here's everything that was presented. If you want to read all this, and if you can dispute or come to a different conclusion, fair enough. Yeah. Then let's build a documentary and start talking about it.
I guess.
But
I don't.
Yeah. But whenever you say Scott Peterson, and I think Scott Peterson's guilty, but Scott Peterson killed his wife. He did it this way. He did. She wasn't she pregnant? I believe.
Yeah.
Here's and you have Dateline, and you have CNN. What's the lady that's always all about the court case? I can't remember her name. I don't think she's on the air anymore. But
like Nancy Grace or something.
Yeah, that's something. Is she still on the air?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. So you got Nancy Grace giving her opinions.
Yeah.
And they're based on her opinions.
Right.
They're not based on evidence. They're just, well, I think that, and it's all vitriol.
I mean,
and
she's going off what she saw on Netflix.
Sure.
And I'm going off what I saw on Netflix. So I mean,
but as soon as you allow that to happen, everything gets fucked. Everything just you basically throw the whole fucking shooting
I hear
match
what you're
out
saying,
the window.
But man, it's a slippery slope to go the other way and say, let's not let anybody know what's going on and trust us to
I don't
just
think
do
it's
the
not
right
let
thing.
anybody. I think it's that you let the courts decide. The lawyers are held to a standard where they don't discuss the case outside of the court. And, there is an oversight, a judiciary oversight, and in every situation, federal, state, and local, there already is a judiciary oversight. There's the Judiciary Committee, the Senate of the U.S., and then there's there's judiciary committees all across the board. And at the local level, there's mayors and governors and county prosecutors and county commissioners. I think there's a way to make that happen, and I think that's probably one of the biggest problems with our judicial system today is the media, and that there's just too much information, and everybody starts to form their opinions and propagate the internet with bullshit that is based on nothing but opinion.
Yeah. What scares me though about it all is just like I said at the beginning, beyond reasonable doubt. I just don't feel like that's a thing anymore. I feel like we don't care about your doubt. If we think it looks like he might have done it, he did it.
Well,
and that's the way they think now. That's the way juries think, judges think, prosecutors think.
Then that's the fault of the justice system. That's the fault of the judge and the jury. The judge needs, go back and watch a 1950s film called 12 Angry Men. It's been redone, but the original, I think it was 50s or maybe early 60s. It's a great film.
The great Tony Danza is in the remake.
Is he? I think Walter Matthau, maybe Jack Lemmon are in the original. It's a good movie, and it holds up, I think, too.
Yeah.
But the point is that it teaches you a lot about how the court works, and that the jury is given very strict instruction, and if there is any inclination by the judge that the jury is tainted in some way, whether it be by outside opinion or then it's up to the judge to remediate that, and then that's why there's 12 people on a jury that you hope that you have maybe you have 3 people on that jury that are, I just think he's guilty because I don't like the way he looks. I don't like the the cut of his jib, and they're gonna damn him no matter what. Well, you hope that the 9 other people are there are like, you're just saying that because you just don't like the way you don't like him because he's white or he's black or he's Native American or whatever.
Yeah.
You're just saying that because you're a racist or you're sexist or whatever. There's controls in place.
Mm-hmm.
There's 11 controls to every potential problematic jurist. So I think that, look, the system's pretty good.
Yeah.
It just needs to be enforced. And whenever you introduce all these other elements into it, media and otherwise, is when things get sideways. I don't know. Here's the bottom line is that neither one of us are lawyers and we know what the fuck we're talking
We
about.
don't have any idea. But I've seen Making a Murderer on Netflix.
So that makes you
I
close
highly
to an expert.
recommend it. Yeah.
I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Exactly.
So pretty sure I'm right on this.
Pretty sure I'm informed and I'm right.
Yeah.
But it is good. I do recommend it. There's several other similar documentaries. The West Memphis 3, I forget what the name of that one's called, but
that's an old case though,
Paradise
right?
Lost, I think is what it's called. Yeah, it is old. I mean, it's not that old. It's within our lifetime, within the last 20 years, but that's interesting too. And, and those 3 guys were sort of found not innocent, but not guilty.
Right.
Freed. And a lot of people think they are guilty, but there's a lot of people think they're innocent. So that's another one. Check out Paradise Lost. There's a 3-part documentary about the West Memphis 3.
Is that on Netflix too? Or?
I think it's on Amazon,
right.
Amazon Prime. So check it
Jared's
out.
got a lot of programming choices.
I sit around and watch a lot of TV. But
right on.
Yeah. So let us know what you think about Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey.
About this time, everybody's watching what's all the Hallmark movies, all the Christmas movies are starting to kick up on
Home for Christmas.
Yeah,
Home
I saw something posted today like they have something like 3 movies a week that are shit movies that I don't I mean I guess they have some person that once was famous. Maybe it's like Luke from the Dukes of Hazzard or something like that.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah, some washed up celebrity.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Snyder stars in Blur. My balls on
those?
Christmas.
Stephen Avery's mom.
Probably.
That's the type of person.
But
that's
the fact
those.
that they keep every year they do it, and the fact that I saw this, I think it was on Facebook, that someone shared like, here's the schedule. Oh my God. And there was like 200 comments like, oh my God, I can't wait. I was like, Jesus Christ, are there that many brain dead morons that are going to watch these shit movies?
Don't you think it's like Sharknado where you just want to watch it to see how bad it is?
I don't know, man.
Maybe
well,
they're really
I think
into
that
it.
chicks dig the tearjerker, and it's all warm and fuzzy and happy stuff, and that that's all good, I guess. Maybe they're not brain dead morons, but
everybody likes Bo and Luke Duke. So
well, yeah,
when
but
you can see them in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah, it's probably maybe a lot of Fred Savage. I don't know what's he up to lately.
He's the voice of something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Anyway, but so that's people aren't going to be watching unsolved crime documentaries. They're going to be watching their Christmas.
Sure,
I'm sure shit. In 5 years, we're going to have Thanksgiving decorations on the shelves in August.
Yeah,
you're going to be like inflatable turkeys, and then right. By December, before we're even done with Christmas, you're going to have like a fucking 12-foot inflatable Cupid on the Walmart shelves. It's like, oh yeah, fucking Valentine's Day's right around the corner, you asshole. Do you love your wife? You better buy this inflatable fucking Cupid. Yeah, it's fuck Hallmark. We
are 2 holidays away from celebrating Valentine's Day again, and Ryan's gonna go off on how it's a stupid fucking holiday. Corporate.
Well, you're not counting New Year's in there.
Well, okay,
I got no issues with
and
New
MLK.
Year's.
I forgot about MLK. So 4 holidays.
MLK is not a Hallmark holiday.
Hey, I get off work for it, so that's all that matters.
As do I. But and neither is New Year's. I think that's the key. But Christmas is the only Hallmark holiday, which isn't. I would even hesitate to call it that because there's a little bit more to it than that. But every holiday that I have no issue with basically is not bastardized by the fucking greeting card company. That's it.
Yeah.
So New Year's, MLK is great. 4th of July. Well, there's fire. The Chinese have gotten into us on that one.
Bastardization.
Well, the 4th of July is not bad. I don't got to buy, and it's proportionate. Everybody gets enjoyment out. If you're American, you get enjoyment out of the 4th of July and Memorial Day. And, I think, but it's whenever it's like Valentine's Day. All right, so I got to go spend $100 on roses and candy for her. And what do I get? I get nothing. I go, oh, thank you, honey. And she gets to post it on the Facebooks that, oh, look what my baby did for me. And I'm out $100. That's bullshit. Thanksgiving, solid. Christmas, no problem. New Year's, no problem. Any of those other in the mix there. St. Patrick's Day, I've already established. I got no issues with.
Yeah, all the ones you get to drink beer on: St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo, 4th of July.
I can drink beer on Valentine's Day. Matter of fact, I do.
Yeah.
So whatever.
All right, it's all good.
I think we should just start celebrating my birthday. And I'm going to start producing greeting cards.
All right.
Ryan's birthday. And I'm going to start a national campaign that we all get the day off.
Hey, let's do it.
I think I got something there.
We'll promote it on the podcast.
Yeah. No, let's not do that.
All right. Well, we encourage you to let us know.
Hey, Sven, you awake? Oh, he's good.
He's
good.
Getting there.
All right.
Yeah.
We got to wake his ass up every once in a while.
He's on his new kit.
No, yeah. Is that new? I didn't notice.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Get a hold of us on Instagram.
Yes.
Or Gmail. Or Twitter. Or YouTube. There's so many ways they can get a hold of us.
Yeah. At Load This Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Email loadthispodcast@gmail.com. And check us out on YouTube. Get a load of this podcast. That's it, right? Just
get a load of this podcast. Yep.
And if I don't know how you're listening to this. It might be on Apple iTunes. It might be on Google Play. Mm-hmm. It might be on Pocket Casts. Any number of, or Spotify. We have a few that I see hitting us up on old Spotify. But tell your friends, share this with them. Hit that little share button on your app.
Give us a like.
You give us a like and share it with your friends.
A thumbs up.
Even if you share it with them and say, listen to these fucking morons, that's fine. We don't care. We call us whatever we want or whatever you want.
Heart us.
Yeah. And definitely, I have a feeling that there's a lot of opinions out there about our topic tonight. Let us know. Let us know how you feel about it. Let us know where you stand on it.
Yep.
If you've watched both seasons, let us know the questions that I asked Jarod about. After season 1, which court were you in? After season 2, did it change? I'll certainly give my opinion on that after I watch season 2. So,
if you know what SA and LE and MAM and BD stand for,
the fuck,
write in.
Holy shit! I don't even know what the fuck
I
want to
hear from you.
Jared's gone rogue. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I thought SA we were talking about Hispanics and slang.
SA.
All right.
As usual. Fuck the Cubs.
Yes, fuck the Cubs. Yeah, I feel bad saying that.
Year-round.
I thought we were switching to fuck the Blackhawks.
We can't because the Blues suck.
The Blues do suck. But the Cardinals suck this year, and we still yell fuck the Cubs,
They were in it.
Yeah. Well.
It's the Cubs. Fuck them.
All right.
Always. Until next time, I'm Jarod.
I'm Ryan.
And get a load of this. All right. Let me top off here, and then we'll start.
All right. So you got to edit this out, obviously. Bush Light. Yeah. I wish I could think of something interesting to say. I tell you what, I called this. I've been on the phone a lot with Sprint and Verizon and all that stuff, and I called this lady yesterday to try to get a phone activated at Verizon. And she answered the phone, and it was, I went through the steps or whatever. Mm-hmm. And she answered the phone, and it was, let's say her name was Colleen, and it sounded like, hello, my name is Colleen.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for calling Verizon. How may I help you today?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that sounds like a fucking automated deal, And or she asked me my name, and I said my name, and then it completely like a switch flipped, and she's like, thanks for calling. So what can I do for you? I got your account pulled up, and I was like, was that you that said, hello, my name is whatever, Colleen? And she's like, yeah, it was. I was like, you have an impeccable voice. It sounded like an automated. I mean, it sounds like you could take over Siri and Alexa's job in one.
Like, I do this a lot.
Yeah. Well, she goes, I get that a lot. And I was like, I mean, it's not like, I mean, it was, she had a nice woman's voice. And, but I was like, man, that was
funny. I just talked to
really
somebody
impressive
today at work who answered the phone the same way. This very automated, rehearsed, thing. But yeah, it totally could have been a recording, and but you could tell she says the same thing over and over. I spent a
lot of years in a call center answering the phone, and mine got worse the more I said it, because it was, it got to the point where it was like, who's this? I just never gave a shit.
Yep.
But it sounds like she's gotten better, so good for her.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point is that we should probably get her on the air here with us. She's got a very soothing. She made me happy. She solved my problems. Yeah, no, she really didn't, but she gave me good explanations as to why she couldn't solve my problems. And I was like, "Hey, you're all right, lady, Colleen, or whatever the hell your name was."
Maybe I'll start the next one with, "We are back for another episode. Get a load of this."
It needs to be more robotic. We need
I'm Jarod. Okay.
We need the male version of Siri.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. We are back from Silver Creek Studios.
Now I'm going to be thinking about it.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this.